Hi, this is Maya Maida, and you're listening to the Food Solidarity Podcast. Conversations with people around the world who are using the power of food to create local change.
Roberto Patiño is the director of Alimenta la Solidaridad, an organization that has spent 4 years combating food insecurity in Venezuela. Since its founding, Alimenta la Solidaridad has served over 7 million meals. On average, the organization feeds over 14,000 children daily through a network of 214 community kitchens. Hi, Roberto. Welcome. It's such a pleasure to be speaking with you today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Congratulations on being one of the 10 recipients of the Food Solidarity Fund. At SGM, we're just very in awe of all of the work that you guys are doing. So thank you. Since it's in the name of your organization and the name of the Food Solidarity Fund, what does that phrase, food solidarity, mean to you?
First, I want to thank the organization for the recognition that you have given us and the fund. For us, food solidarity means humanity, means connecting with people on a more basic level as human beings, sharing a meal and having the possibility of a big impact in the lives of those who suffer the most from food insecurity in Venezuela, which are children. For us, there's nothing more unjust in a society that a girl or a boy that doesn't eat correctly, because it's not going to be able to develop its best version of herself or himself, its cognitive capacity, its physical capacity, and be a productive and independent member of society. So for us, food solidarity, it's about justice. It's about also expressing the best values of humanity, which is solidarity.
And is food solidarity a concept that you've always had in mind? I know you have a background working with violence reduction. So what was your push, your inspiration for moving towards working with food security directly?
Yeah, so we have always believed that in order to create sustainable social change, lasting social change, we need to empower communities. We need to give capacities to those who are suffering the problems for them to be the solution to those problems. We think that the idea that solutions to problems come from outside of communities, it's a false idea, because it's not going to be sustainable in time. So for us, we were focusing on violence reduction when we started Mi Convives already 7 years ago. And in order to reduce violence, we need to understand violence. And violence has one key component or characteristic. Violence concentrates in few places and in few people. And these places are called hotspots. 80% of homicides in Caracas occur only in 5% of street segments. And we were targeting those places and doing cultural and sports activities to prevent violence from erupting. So while we were doing a public screening of a movie in 2016, I don't know if you remember this movie Inside Out. We were showing it to children, and we thought that everybody was having a great time. And a little girl named Fabiola, she was back then 6 years old, approached me and told me that she was starving, that she wanted if I could give her something to eat. And this was really shocking for me. Seeing being face to face with the already starting humanitarian complex emergency in Caracas and in Venezuela. And also for me, few months before, my sister had her first baby, and he was my godson. And imagining him in that situation also broke my heart. So I think that once you have nephews, or I don't have children, I still don't have children, but I imagine it's the same. It changes the way you see all children. So I started seeing in Fabiola and in other children's in a very urgent need. So we decided that we wanted to create an initiative to face this problem of food insecurity for children. We are also hearing a lot from the schools in the city that children would faint at classrooms because they came in without eating anything. So we tried to combine three ideas. The idea of community empowerment. So we would give the communities the ingredients, but the community and the training, the community would put everything else. The community would put the infrastructure, the community would put the organization, and the most important thing, the work. It's a voluntary network. The idea that children would be encouraged to go to the school if they came to the community kitchen, and the idea as well that we could provide a real balanced and nutritious meals to children with the proteins they need, but also with the vegetables and the produce that can have a great impact in their health.
And one thing I thought was interesting about the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the doctrine that holds states accountable for child protection, is that it's not until Article 24 really that they start to talk about food. But one thing I think that is really interesting is Article 24E, which is to ensure all segments of society, in particular parents and children, are informed, have access to education, and are supported in the basic knowledge of child health and nutrition, the advantages of breastfeeding, hygiene, and environmental sanitation, and the prevention of accidents. Mm-hmm. What are some concrete examples of how you engage the entire family, as well as children, in the practice of food solidarity and promoting this education?
Yeah, so we've developed also an initiative that it's a sister initiative of Alimenta la Solidaridad that it's called Sustento. It would translate as a sustainment in English. The idea being that our most committed volunteers, who are primarily women from these communities, are receiving also training by the best chefs in our country. And we created a catering service. And the idea is that we sell food to individuals, businesses, diplomats, and all the profits are being reinvested in the community kitchens and in giving these women a dignified salary or wage. So from our perspective, food solidarity, it's a great opportunity not only to provide a most needed benefit to children, but also to create a chain of social impact related to women empowerment, to economic sustainability, to also encouraging local producers who are our providers that come from small towns, small communities. And when we buy from them the ingredients that we need, we're also encouraging the economy of these communities. And that generates as well development. So I think that on top of all these economic, social empowerment model, we also want to have an impact in the families that we serve by providing them with psychological support and with tools to face the big challenges that we face in Venezuela. The situation of the communities in Venezuela is it's really difficult in terms of services. There's no water, a lot of times electricity, even gas to cook. So for us, the idea that families need also in the context of the pandemic to have the tools to provide for children the basic education that they need is something that we take very seriously. and we have tried to combine the impact and maintaining the service that we provide to communities and to the community kitchens without having increased risks associated with the coronavirus. So we have had to adapt our model, and now it's a takeout model. At the beginning, we had of the year, we had already 214 community kitchens, and we had to distribute the ingredients, and it was prepared there, and the children would eat there. But now the children are not eating there, but we are preparing the food in these 214 community kitchens, and then it's being distributed to the directly to the homes of these children. And with the distribution of food, we're also trying to distribute information and best practices for to face not only the pandemic, but also the fact that a lot of children are not being able at the present moment to go to school.
And 7 million meals is a really impressive number. It's huge. And 14,000 meals a day is equally as impressive. I was wondering, how do you manage to continue that level of distribution despite facing challenges, and especially during this year, during the pandemic?
So for us, the situation with the pandemic, which is of course the biggest challenge that we are facing as every member of the world, I think, in this present year, um, we it has been a confirmation that the model of community empowerment is the right model for us, because from day one, we just gave the information and standards that we're uh, generating for this new situation. And we were amazed to see how fast communities adapted and were able to implement it. And I'm sure that if our model would have been a centralized model, it would have been much more difficult to implement these measures, since the leaders of each community know that there's their responsibility, and they're accountable for what's going on in their communities, and they have um, a big possibility of impacting the lives of so many children. We've seen with awe and with a lot of admiration how our people at the community level, our volunteers have responded. Um, in Venezuela, we have also faced a gasoline crisis, which has been very, very challenging for our community kitchens in terms of distribution. Um, we have had to use our we have had to build alliances with, for example, a group of people who love to use bicycles in one state. They have a bike club, and one day we couldn't find gasoline, and they were willing to put a lot of kilograms of food into their bikes and just drive around and bring the food to the community kitchens. And in rural areas, we have had to use also more primary methods of distribution, like using donkeys in one case. But what for me has been the most, um, in, what I've been most impressed about is the level of commitment of these communities, and how even people who are living the most difficult situation that you can imagine, waking up every day without electricity, without water, with a lot of uncertainty in terms of how the family is going to eat, and with the fear of the coronavirus. A lot of our volunteers had found in Alimenta la Solidaridad a purpose. And that purpose is connected to serving others, and serving others who are even more at need, which are more vulnerable, who are the children. And that gives them an incredible amount of energy and goodwill to keep moving forward and to keep uh, fighting for the children of their community.
And why do you think food is such an important tool to use for, like, if you want to create social change, especially at that nexus of violence reduction, child protection, and community development?
Yeah, I think for me is related to, as I was saying at the beginning, the idea of community empowerment, of giving tools to people giving them responsibilities and allowing them to build self-esteem on the results of their work, of their efforts. I think that food is incredibly powerful to build, to achieve peace. When you sit to eat with someone, it's an act of recognition, of mutual recognition as human beings, and it's a space to enjoy and to exchange ideas. So I think that I've learned, it was not planned, that how powerful food can be to bring people together, because we were already doing it, trying to do it on violence reduction with sports and cultural activities, as such as public screening of movies that I was telling you about. But there's nothing more powerful that I've seen than food to really bring people together to fight for a common cause. I think that something very powerful is is actually not a metaphor, it's a reality. When someone gives you some food or a coffee in their house, that's something that they prepare with their hands, and you're actually allowing that person to come through that food or that coffee into you, literally, right? So it generates a very special connection, I think. One of the of when we started our first community kitchen, we did it with the support of a Jesuit priest that lives in that community, and he told me something that really shocked me. He told me that he really believed in this idea of the community kitchens, because in his reading of Jesus' life and the teachings that he works in, he said, well, historically, not even religiously, uh, Jesus was such a revolutionary figure because he would eat with the outcast of the society. He would eat with people from other religions and from people who are considered uh, delinquents and stuff. He would equalize himself to them. So even though, of course, our program is not faith-based or have any type of formal relationship with the Catholic Church, I think that this idea of food as an equalizer and food as a mechanism to connect, um, it goes across cultures. And given that Latin American, as you have probably experienced in Brazil, has also a lot of has a lot of influence from the Christian church, Catholic or evangelical. I think that it also resonates a lot with the culture when you bring projects that are around food and around inclusion. These two ideas are very powerful.
It really seems like these community kitchens have so much more of a role where they are as spaces than just simply a place where you eat meals. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
For us, it sounds like a contradiction, but I always insist that we envision a country without community kitchens, and that's why we are opening up community kitchens. And it's because in order to have members of society who are productive and independent, you need children to eat well. That's like the first building block of any society. If children are hungry, they're gonna be mad, as you were saying. They're gonna be suffer from a lot of anxiety. They're not gonna be able to develop all their capacities. So for us, that's the first building block. But we would celebrate the day that the community kitchens are not needed, but just they are a feature of a community that wants to come together. But it's not because there is a need. It's not because children are hungry. And that social fabric for us, that community empowerment, that's what's permanent. And that's what today we're fighting against hunger. And tomorrow, if we are able to overcome this situation, we are going to have other problems. It's violence reduction, it's education, it's better nutrition as well for communities. And for that, you need community leaders. You need people with credibility at the community level who can really convey a message with having any other agenda than the well-being of the members of that community.
And what do you think is important about, taking these models and sharing them with other organizations who are trying to replicate something similar in their own country or community? And what's so important about this, we love to say at SGM, connecting global and acting local? How is that something that you value as an organization?
Yeah. So for us, Maya, it's incredibly important that we have the support of so many people around the world, and it started with Venezuelans who were giving help uh, for us to be able to feed more children. We started with actually Sophie and her team, Sofia Teiza and her team in Mexico. And then it started growing, and we have so many Venezuelans in so many cities around the globe who are contributing. And those Venezuelans, of course, have friends, have new connections in the countries where they're living. And those people really care also about Venezuela and also have found through Alimenta la Solidaridad a possibility of having a direct and very concrete impact in the world. So for us, Alimenta la Solidaridad and this concept of food solidarity, it's a global concept. And as we have received the support of so many people, we're also very eager to help whenever we can with people from other nationalities who are also trying to develop projects. And Venezuela has seen a massive refugee and migrant crisis. More than 5 million people have left the country in the past years, only surpassed by what's been happening in Syria. And I think that all that pain and suffering also has a flip side, which is the solidarity and generosity of the Venezuelan people. I think that that's why wherever you see a Venezuelan, typically is someone that has a lot of friends and connects with a lot of people because it's a way of being. And I think that when we have the opportunity to do events in other countries, there are usually events also around food, around our traditional food. And it brings a lot of people who want to help, who want to be part of this movement of solidarity. And we've been looking at expanding our operations to Colombia and Peru. Uh, and we are seeking for the financial support to do it, but because we see that in those countries as well, not only the refugees from Venezuela, but also the local communities are suffering a lot for the because of the crisis that is being generated from Venezuela. And we think that this model that we've implemented for the past 4 years has a lot of promise to be replicated in other parts of the world as well.
If you could imagine what the food system in Venezuela and in the world would look like in 2030, assuming that we as a global community have achieved all of the sustainable development goals, including zero hunger, zero poverty, sustainable cities. What does a food system look like to you? And in that imaginary vision of the future, and what would you imagine the role of Alimenta la Solidaridad was in creating that future?
Wow. Okay. So for me, the global food system would be, or the ideal global food system would be built around first a respect for cultures and the way that each culture celebrates food and prepares food, but also a respect for science and what the science tells us about what are the best ways to, or what are the principles that need to be respected in terms of reducing as well obesity and the consumption of food that it's not well digested by human beings. I think that, of course, we envision, I dream with a world without hunger, a world where all the, specifically the children of the world, have the possibility of having a proper meal, having the energy to play, to enjoy, to go to school, to learn, to grow. And Alimenta la Solidaridad can humbly play a role in Venezuela, and hopefully we can also inspire other worried citizens of the world in focusing the work and supporting those who need it the most. Because sometimes I think that a lot of efforts are being dispersed and are not necessarily going to the people who need them the most. And we're making a big effort, at least in Venezuela, to go to those communities who are most at risk and suffering from the consequences of a crisis that they didn't create. And it's a crisis that, unlike those crises that are related to the environment, like for example, an earthquake or a hurricane, what is the saddest part about the Venezuelan crisis is that it's completely a human-made crisis of bad decisions, polarization, and corruption. And I think that if we can help and inspire people who are in other societies struggling with the same problems, uh, that would be another encouraging contribution that we can make.
If you want to learn more about Alimenta la Solidaridad, the Food Solidarity Fund, and the social gastronomy movement, visit www.socialgastronomy.org. Today we also have a special announcement. If you're listening before the 16th of October, head on over to our site and check out the Food Solidarity Gathering, a week-long event series with over 30 sessions led by the members of our community who are making change using the power of food. If you want to have meaningful dialogue, co-create action, and share valuable learnings, then this event is for you. Sign up today on our website.